How's it going, you lovely bunch of bakers? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're kicking off the Christmas season with a nice brioche recipe. So let's go to the kitchen and check it out. Brioche is the most versatile dough ever created, so it is the perfect thing for a Christmas bake. These bad boys were inspired by Swedish cardamom buns. This is a slow fermented brioche dough layered with cinnamon, cardamom and sugar. It is topped with crunchy pistachios and a sticky sugary glaze. Just look at those beautiful layers. This recipe uses half of my standard brioche dough. I always like to make the full batch and then use it for 2 different projects. I would suggest you do that too. You'll find more brioche recipes in the brioche playlist. Right, here's what we need. A tray with some non-stick paper, a brush, a spatula, something to cut the dough with. A pizza wheel works perfectly. If you don't have one of these, you can of course use a knife. Now on to the ingredients. For the filling and topping, we'll need butter, sugar, cinnamon, cardamom, we'll need an egg for brushing, we'll need some chopped pistachios, and finally some water and sugar for the shiny glaze. Right, let's start by making the filling. The main flavor in this recipe is the cardamom. I would highly suggest you grind your own. You can of course get powdered cardamom, but it's not going to be as intense as this. So if you have a mortar and pestle, you might as well use it, right? Here's how I like to do it. First, drop all the cardamoms in the mortar. Bash them around with a pestle until they all open up. Next up, remove all the shells. Yes, it's a little bit tedious, it will take around 5 minutes, but it's well worth the effort. Next up, grab the pestle and grind the cardamom seeds down to a powder. If you have never tried this spice before, definitely give it a go, you might just love it. It is so sweet and fragrant, very unique. Right, here's a good tip for removing your powders from the mortar. Use a brush, it's like it was made for this job. Right, that's our cardamom powder done, we can move on to mixing our filling. In a small bowl, combine the softened butter, cardamom, cinnamon and sugar. And the butter must be soft, otherwise you won't be able to mix it. Take a spoon or a spatula and mix everything until smooth and well combined. And then leave it on the side. Do not refrigerate this, otherwise it's going to go solid. Right, that's the filling done, the only other thing we need is a brioche dough. I've included the machine mixed version in this video. You can find the hand-mixed brioche guide in the brioche playlist. For the brioche dough, we'll need some strong white bread flour, eggs, some cold butter, yeast, salt, sugar and a bit of water. And I cannot stress this enough, temperature control is of utmost importance here. Your ingredients must be totally cold. I actually kept my flour in the freezer, so it's below 0 degrees. And as you can see, the eggs are about 4 degrees Celsius. I know we're just using a splash of water here, but that also needs to be completely cold. If your kitchen is really warm and your fridge doesn't go that low, put your ingredients in the freezer, but just pull them out before they're frozen solid. Now adding cold and hard butter into a dough would be quite difficult, so to make it nice and soft and pliable, we're gonna press it. Place the butter in between layers of parchment paper, then press it out using a rolling pin. The butter will be soft, but will still be cold. And once you've flattened your butter, take it off the paper and place it back into the fridge until you need it. I'll show you one more way how to control the temperature here. What I did was refrigerate my mixing bowl and I kept the dough hook in the freezer all day long. And with all these measures in place, we are ready to make the fail-proof brioche dough. So in your mixing bowl, add the water, salt, yeast, sugar, eggs and flour. Now unlike all my other recipes, we are adding all the ingredients straight from the get-go. Normally when making dough by hand, I would suggest adding all the ingredients except the flour, giving them a mix, only then adding the flour. But when you're using a mixer, it doesn't really matter that much. Now bring your bowl up and set the mixer to low speed, which is second on my mixer. We want to bring the dough together and work it for around 10 minutes. It's important to get some gluten going before we start adding the butter, because adding butter too early will hinder gluten formation. But around 10 minutes later, the dough should be nice and strong already. Switch the mixer off and give your dough a pull, it should be nice and strong. From now on we can start adding the butter, so switch the mixer back on and throw the butter in chunks. Now a quick side note on the amount of dough that we're making. This is my full brioche dough recipe, but in this video I will only end up using half of it, I'll use the other half for another project. The reason for making the full amount is that, as you can see, half of it would be near impossible to mix in a mixer properly. Even making the full dough requires some scraping down the sides and helping the mixer out once in a while. And once you have added all the butter, it's nearly disappeared, scrape down the sides of the bowl and keep mixing on low speed for another 5 minutes. And after 5 minutes, turn the speed up. I'm gonna go to medium, which is number 4 on my mixer, and I'll keep mixing the dough for another 7 minutes. So back to the amount of dough that we're making. I will only use half of it for this video. So if you want to, you can double the amount of all the other ingredients and simply make twice the amount of everything. Or you can do what I do, use half for this project and half for another. And you can find plenty more delicious uses for brioche dough in my brioche playlist. I highly suggest you check it out, because as I always say, brioche is the most versatile dough out there. So if you see the dough sticking to the sides of the bowl, scrape it up again and then keep mixing. And once the 7 minutes have passed, turn the speed down, back to low, which is number 2 on my mixer. And from here on, we only need to mix for another 3 minutes or so. And once that's over, the dough should not stick to the sides or the bottom of the bowl. And the total mixing time should not really exceed 25 minutes. And that is exactly why we need stone cold ingredients, because 25 minutes of mixing will really warm the dough up. And this looks good, it's nice and smooth and it's really strong. Now we can start the chilling down and the folding process. Get a bowl and place your dough ball in it. Shape it into a ball before you do so it's nice and neat. If it feels a bit sticky, you can wet your hands with water to make it easier to handle. And at this point you want to take the dough temperature. It should be around 25 to 26 degrees Celsius. And this one's just about right, thanks to the cold ingredients. Now let's cover this up and pop it in the fridge for 1 hour. After the first hour of chilling, we need to give it a fold. Folding will make the dough stronger, give it more structure. It will also help with degassing it, and it will help with the chilling down process. As the surface of the dough cools down, the inside still stays warm. But when we fold it, we will distribute that temperature evenly throughout the dough, so that all parts of the dough ferment at the same rate. So dust your dough with light dusting of flour, place it out on the table smooth side down, stretch it out, and then fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until it reaches the point where you started. You can actually go past the point you started, just until the dough ball is nice and tight. But don't make it too tight, because you don't want to tear the surface. Now flip the dough smooth side up again, tighten it against the table so it's nice and round. Now we can place it back into the bowl, cover it up and pop it in the fridge for another hour of chilling down. And after the second hour of chilling, we can divide it. As I said, this video requires half the dough, so I will weigh the dough and divide it into 2. If you simply want to make double the amount of things, then keep the dough whole, and instead of dividing, you can simply give it another fold. But I will use half for this project and half for another. When dividing and weighing, also use a light dusting of flour, just to prevent any stickage. If your scales are not large enough, place a bowl or plate on them. This is quite a big piece of dough. And isn't that lucky, I cut it to the perfect weight. So after dividing, we need to shape them up. Shaping goes the same way as the folding earlier. Place your dough smooth side down, fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach the point where you started. Then flip it smooth side up, tighten it against the table, you can pick it up, pinch the seam together, and that's your dough ball done. Now we can wrap them up with some cling film so they don't dry out in the fridge. Make sure to not wrap it too tight, because the dough will expand. If you wrap it up too tightly, it may burst. And if it bursts, the part that comes out will get dry in the fridge, and part of your dough will be ruined. But that's all we need to do to make brioche dough. After this, we need to refrigerate it, and you can use it for any project you like. You can keep it in the fridge for up to 24 hours, but 12 to 16 hours will be perfect. Alright, it's the next day, we can make our buns. Grab your dough out of the fridge, unwrap it, dust it generously with flour. Then start by flattening it out and pressing it out by hand. Once you have pressed it to a flat disc, grab a rolling pin and continue by rolling it out to a large rectangle. Don't worry too much about measurements here, just make it a large rectangle. I didn't measure anything. If you make it a bit thicker, it's not going to be the end of the world, don't worry. Once you are happy with the size, dot the filling all over the dough. It's important you do it this way, because we need to spread this out in a very thin layer. And if you try spreading it out from the get-go, it's not going to work. You might end up with too much filling on one side and not enough on the other. So after dotting it around, spread it out gently using your spatula. This will take a couple of minutes, so don't rush it. Just make sure it's all nicely spread out and it covers the whole surface. Okay, now we need to fold this into 3 layers. First up, make sure everything's nice and straight. Then pick the dough up and fold 1/3 of it over. Lay it down as straight as you can, pat out any large air bubbles, and then fold over the other side. So now we got our 3 layers. but it's all a little bit uneven. So dust the dough on the table with flour once again, grab your rolling pin and roll it out a little bit. It doesn't have to be super flat or big, just make sure that it's all an even thickness. Next up, grab your cutter and cut the dough into 6 long strips. If you want to make slightly smaller buns, cut it into 8 or even 10. But no matter how many you are making, the shaping's still the same. So watch closely, pick up a strip of dough and then wrap it around 2 fingers. Then pull your fingers out and keep wrapping the dough around and turning it. Each time you go around, turn the dough. The loose piece of dough should never take the same path around the dough ball. And there you have it. That's what it should look like once you're done. And as you can see now, it looks much more intricate than it actually is. But let's just do it one more time so you get a better idea. Take the strip of dough, pick up one end, wrap it around both your index and your middle fingers, then pull the fingers out, and then keep wrapping the dough around itself and turning it at the same time. Once it's all wrapped up in a nice round dough ball, take the loose end and tuck it underneath somewhere. It doesn't matter where, just find the closest spot and just tuck it in so it's not hanging out. And then the bun can be placed on the tray on that spot. Okay, shaping done, let's get this out of the way and clean out the mess. Place your brioche balls on a non-stick paper lined tray. Make sure you leave enough space between them, because they will puff up quite a lot as they rise and bake. Because this dough has come out the fridge is quite cold still, the final proof will take quite long. It will of course depend on the temperature of your kitchen. It took me around 4 hours at 24 degrees Celsius or 75 degrees Fahrenheit. During the final hour of fermentation, preheat your oven, 160 degrees Celsius, fan on, and that is 320 degrees Fahrenheit for my American friends. These bad boys are puffed up quite well. Give the tray a shake. They should have a little wobble to them. If your balls are not wobbly, they're not ready yet, so leave them to ferment for longer, but these are looking good. So I'm going to brush them with egg and then generously top them with the chopped pistachios. If you don't like pistachios, hazelnuts or walnuts would work quite well here too. Or you could top them with some pearl sugar or nothing at all. It's up to you. Right, let's get these bad boys in the oven. They'll take around 25 minutes. And just look at them puffing up. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, just before they come out of the oven, you want to make your hot sugar syrup. In a small pan, combine the sugar and the water. Place it on the stove and bring it up to a boil. As soon as your brioche balls come out of the oven, brush them generously with the hot sugar syrup. This will make them extra sweet and sticky, and they will stay softer for longer. I have filmed a few festive bakes by now, but this one is so far my favorite. It is so easy to make, and the flavor and texture is amazing. The brioche is rich, soft and springy, and I just love the combination of cardamom and cinnamon. Don't forget to check out the brioche playlist for more awesome projects. And of course check out the Breads of Christmas playlist. It is full of festive recipes. You will be spoiled for choice for your Christmas baking this year. And keep an eye out for the bread baking time-lapse compilation. I will dedicate the whole video to all the breads that we baked this year. If you haven't seen last year's one, definitely check that out too. But anyway, this brioche is amazing. Go and make it. So what do you think of these buns? Let me know down in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this one, click over here. Subscribe to the channel, click right here. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.